Hi, everyone. This is Marilyn Bradford, and I would like to welcome you to my Left Turn podcast. What is your left turn? Writing a blog, parenting in a different way, letting go of the old because you are aware of something greater. Left turns are choices we can all make. It's about a willingness to step into the unknown in any area of your life, to trust yourself, to risk creating or trying something new. It's about letting your true uniqueness shine. The greatest people who have lived, artists, statesmen, writers, explorers, musicians, have all been people willing to turn left. What capacities do you have that you have not acknowledged? What would your life and the world be like if you were willing to turn left? Welcome, everyone, to this edition of the Left Turn podcast. And I have with me today as a guest, Viv Adcock, whom I've known for years. However, because she's in Australia, I don't get to see her very much. So I think it's very exciting that she came on today. Viv is an access consciousness facilitator. She's a life transformer extraordinaire. She's done all kinds of things with her life. But one of the things that I remember her for, though she didn't put it in her little bio, was that at one point she came to America. Now, I got to let you know, Viv is smaller than I am. I'm like this small. Oh. And Viv drove these gigantic 18-wheeler trucks. When I heard that, it just cracked me up, and it stayed with me. So you get the idea. You're someone who will try pretty much anything, and there's no in her universe. So welcome, Viv.
Thank you, Marilyn. That was a pretty impressive introduction. And you know, it's so funny because I'd completely forgotten about that left-hand turn. So thank you for that giggle and reminder. So yeah, thank you for having me on.
Well, thank you. So what would you consider some of the major left turns in your life?
Well, I currently live in Australia and consider myself more Australian than English because I was born in the UK, but I always had this fascination as a kid, funnily enough, with Australia and kangaroos and wombats and all the marsupials that they have on this incredible continent. And so when I was 7, you know, we were learning in school about how to write essays. We didn't know what essays were. And they said, right, well, pick an animal, pick any animal that you would like and write an essay on it. So I picked a kangaroo, of course, in the middle of industrial England. But I think I know now looking back that was already my knowing, whispering to me about, you know, traveling overseas. So fast forward, I went through, I'm actually a qualified chef. So that's what I spent.
Oh, I didn't know that. I love cooking. That is awesome.
Yeah. So I spent, I don't know, my years after school becoming a qualified chef and did really well at that, worked as a chef for 4 or 5 years. And then I just had this ping to go to Australia, as you do. So at the age of 22, I boarded a plane with a dear friend of mine from the UK, and we jumped on a plane and headed to Australia. Have no idea why at the time. It just felt like fun. And, you know, Australia was a very, you know, it was this, Australia has this enigma to most people overseas. It's this great land down under that's got all these incredible animals and sharks and spiders and snakes, but it holds us in this kind of rapture in some undescribable way. And so I ended up in Australia, and that was against all my family. Like everybody else was married, settled down, had kids. I was the youngest of the family, and they were all scratching their heads going, why are you giving away a perfect career? You know, you should be settling down and having children and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, bye. So that was the first radical one. And I do remember my father, who had very little to do with us as kids. I think back then, you know, fathers didn't really have that much emotional and energetic engagement with kids. But he said, well, that's it, you know, set yourself a target and stick to it. So then I'm like, oh God, there's no getting out of it now. So even if I have second thoughts, which I had lots of in the 6 months leading up to heading down under, bearing in mind it's the opposite end of the earth, you know.
Yes, it really is.
Yeah. So that was the one piece of encouragement that he gave me. And yet those words are still ringing with me today. Set a target and do your best to, get to that target, do whatever it takes. So I'm grateful that he gave me that nudge.
Well, it sounds like you didn't get a whole lot of pushback, which sometimes people do for insane things like moving across the world because you have a knowing. It also seems like you didn't really have a point of view about what anybody else said or felt. And you're at that age, not your age, but like at 22, most people are very wrapped up in, oh, what does everybody think? Am I doing it right? Am I doing it wrong?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I did have some of that from particularly my employer. He had big visions for me with where he could see me going within the structure of where I was chefing at the time. He could see I obviously had a lot of potential. Not that I knew it at the tender age of 19, or 20, but he was really grooming me to go into a position that he wanted me to. And he probably gave me the biggest, he put the biggest doubts in my world. He was Italian and very family orientated, and he'd kind of taken me in. And so, it was very,
Yes.
but what if? And, there was all of this questioning. My family mostly were supportive. I can imagine the conversations that were going on in their heads. One of my sisters, particularly my sister I'm most close to, was very more concerned than anything else. They just saw it as a great adventure. So, and yeah, you're right. I didn't really have much. I was very much a thrill seeker and, an adventurer. I still am.
Yes.
And to me, it was like, yeah, let's go. Life's beginning. I didn't know, but my life was about to take a massive, massive left turn. So, yeah.
So how has it been in Australia? And what other left turns have appeared for you? And I mean, you're still there years
Well,
later.
yeah, yeah, it was supposed to be a 12-month working visa at the age of 22, and I'm now 57. Don't tell
You
anybody.
spring chicken, you.
And yeah, I mean, I luckily I was sponsored for my residency with a very well-to-do yacht club in Sydney, which, I don't know how long that took now. I know it was a stressful period, but they granted me residency to live in Australia. And then there was this is the next major left-hand turn that got me basically to where I am today. And it was as soon as I got my residency, so I had to stay working for the yacht club while I was under, application to emigrate. That was part of the deal. So as soon as I got my residency, I was out again. I was like, I've been here way too long. And I just saw this random massage course, learn to do remedial massage in a health food shop window. So I went and did that. It was just a 6-week, mums and dads kind of course, and gave the lady a massage at the end of it to get my certificate. And she said, wow, you're amazing. You're amazing with bodies. Have you considered doing anything? And that just opened the door to a whole other world that I didn't even know exists. So I got into kinesiology, which is muscle testing and talking to the body. I got into shiatsu and then learned to be a yoga teacher and learned Bowen technique and, did all of these amazing therapies and workshops, which, I'd never even heard of prior to this, which then led me eventually to build a fantastic business in Queensland, Australia, where I was, booked out 3 weeks in advance. Then I discovered the tools of access because I got bored looking at people's problems and issues all the time. I'm like, oh my God, when do I get the good stuff, And then access consciousness came into my world, which was another left-hand turn, so which I'm still on.
Right.
So yeah, that's the long and the short of it, really.
So what would you say to people who go, hey, Viv, I'm just bored. What would you tell me? What can I change? I mean,
Well, I mean, looking back, I know I dug really deep, but there's this inner calling, there's this voice whispering to you, there's this sense of knowing, there's this tug in your being, it, even if it only happens in the deepest, darkest moments, that voice is inviting you to something greater if you're willing to change, because change is terrifying to most people. They get
it is.
comfortable. even though they're really stale and bored and hate where they're at, you know, they would rather choose to stay comfortable and safe rather than, okay, well, what's the best that can happen? You know, I don't ask what's the worst can happen. I'm like, well, what's the best that can happen?
Yes, I love that.
So, you know, it's what is it that's calling to you? What is it that you know? What is it that's whispering? What is it that's following you around all the time? And I remember having a conversation with Gary Douglas, the founder of Access, in the very early days of me discovering Access. So I've been a facilitator 16 years now, which is the longest I think I've ever stayed with anything. And he said, you know, what is it that keeps following you around all the time? What is it that keeps presenting itself to you? What is it that's tapping you on your shoulder that you keep, you know, kind of dismissing or pushing to one side, or you've got a conclusion about? And I'm like, oh, wow, it's actually talking with people. You know, I mean, I'd be a kid at the bus stop and I'd get somebody come and tell me their life story. I'd be sitting on a train somewhere and some random stranger would come and tell me about, you know, the latest trauma and drama. I'm like, what does it say? Therapist above my head in flashing lights. You know, at this stage, I was only 18 or 19. But when I look back, I saw so many hints that the universe was gifting me and so many doors it was trying to open for me. But at that stage, I was still too, you know, narrow-minded and focused on what I thought I had to do and what other people expected of me. Yeah.
Well, you were a natural that people wanted to go towards. I mean, to me, what you're talking about, and this is something that maybe you can expand upon, your barriers were down. You didn't have the standard barrier up against the world, and you know what? You know, you were like, "Hi, I'm Viv. Tell me your life story."
Yeah, and just tapping back to that conversation, because, you know, it's like, well, how the hell did I end up driving 18-wheeler trucks around America? You know,
I
I mean,
love that.
that's another completely random story too. So that was sandwiched in between leaving the chef's world and the massage world. So I actually injured my body and couldn't massage anymore. You know, now I realize it was my body helping me and facilitating me. And so I was looking for something different. And my husband at the time said to me, oh, I've just had some friends go to America and drive trucks and they're earning tons of money and they're having fun. And I said, let's go. You know, because here I was thinking, well, you can drive and I'll just paint my fingernails and color in mandalas and make you sandwiches, you know, and enjoy the scenery. And as it turned out, he didn't end up getting his license, which was more a political thing, not from a skill-based thing. But I ended up getting my license and I'm like, oh my God. So for my 33rd birthday, I got a big Volvo truck. So I actually literally on the day of my 33rd birthday, I was getting into this truck in Des Moines in Iowa, which is where our base was, and off we went on our first trip. So, you know, that was the universe actually creating space for me to acknowledge, girl, you can do anything, you know, because I always had this thing about my size. I'm 5'4", you know, I'm tiny. I'm 50 kilos. I don't even know what that is in pounds, but I'm not very
About
heavy.
110. It's small.
And that's even with jumpers and thick socks on. So the thought, I couldn't even reach the bloody pedals in this truck, you know, the seat was jammed all the way forward. And this is as true as I'm sitting here. To put the truck in top gear, I couldn't reach because it was so far behind me that my husband in the passenger seat had to put it into top gear. That is as true as I'm sitting here. So, you know, never let anything stop you. It's just, but had I really
never let anything stop you. Absolutely.
Yeah. Had I thought that I would be the one driving a truck on the other side of the road, you know, an 80-foot long vehicle, you know, it was just everything against everything that I ever believed I could do. And it just totally, it empowered me. It terrified the pants off me for the first month, literally. But then after that, I was like, oh, I've got this. This is easy, you know, and we started having fun and it was an adventure.
Yeah.
So I don't even remember the question you asked me, Marilyn. Sorry, but
no, but it doesn't matter because I think that's really, really fun information for everybody. Never let anything stop you, even if you can't reach the pedals.
Yeah.
Figure it out.
Yeah.
Find some way to go beyond and have fun.
Yeah, exactly. And I learned to embrace everything, even the most difficult times. You know, I mean, I had, believe it or not, I had 2 arguments in my marriage in all the years we were married and friends, which was nearly 28 years. And one was driving the truck, because he was so frustrated that he couldn't drive the truck, and I damaged it somehow. It was a minor damage, but it was like, even in those most difficult of times where, you know, I was really up against that wall where I just wanted to chuck the towel in and give up and just crawl back into my comfort zone. It's like, just one more step, kiddo. Come on, you've got this. Just one more step. And you know, having your own back and learning to really be your own cheerleader is a big thing, because your mind can play such awful games with you.
Yes.
It can really, you know, diminish you and undermine you and keep you small, when so much life and living is out there waiting for you. Yeah.
Absolutely. So then you got back to Australia and you found Access. So tell me more about that and what you created with that and where things are. And
yeah. So, you know, like I said, I got to the point with the kinesiology where it's like everybody was coming in to get their issues fixed, their problems solved, and, you know, they want the magic answer and to make their life work. And it was exhausting. It was mentally exhausting. I was having to think all the time. I was in my head too much. And yeah, people were getting their life was changing, but I knew that there was more, and I wanted to reach more people rather than one-on-one. So, you know, I said to the universe, because by now I'd actually developed quite a good relationship with the universe, thanks to the truck driving. I'm like, Jesus, if you're out there, please save me, keep me safe. Yeah, so I had this awakening, I think, and a friend of mine, I had a conversation with the universe going, okay, there's got to be more to life than this. I don't want to be doing this. I love what I do. I love, you know, creating change with people, but there's got to be more. Where's the good stuff? You know, when do we get to actually have the really cool fun? And a friend of mine introduced me to the book Money Isn't the Problem, You Are, because at the time I was writing my own workshops and delivering workshops. And I said to her, I really want to do one on money, because I know, you know, the amount of money that we're willing to have or generate is up to us. You know, it's really what we think we're worth. And at the time I was looking at, you know, the self-worth thing, which I've now realized, you know, it's just a story, really. And so, yeah, I was introduced to this Money Isn't the Problem, You Are book. And that was it. I just knew from literally I think I read the first chapter, I went, who is this guy? You know? And I looked up, we had 2 facilitators in Australia at the time, 2 or 3 facilitators in Australia. I went and did a bars class, and I went down to Phillip Island, which is where there's, it's very famous for motor car racing and motorbikes. And another job I'd had was working on the Grand Prix circuit with motorbikes in Europe for a few years with my husband. So we were going down to see some friends of ours racing motorbikes that weekend. And anyway, I woke up about 4 o'clock in the morning on the day of the race. And in my head, I heard, you're going to be an access consciousness facilitator and you're going to take this to the world. And I'm like, wow, okay. So everything in my world was just like this flower blossoming, you know, there was like this opening. I don't know how else to describe it. And so I then went and did foundation and met Gary and Dane, and, you know, the rest's history. So, but there was just something in that book, Money Isn't the Problem, You Are. There was something in that book that just lit up that part of me that was hungering for what else is possible. Where's the good stuff? Where do I get to? And now I realize everything in Access invites you to create your life. It gives you the steering wheel of your life, and you've even got a map book. You know, it's still up to you where you go with that map, but you've got, you know, lots of different maps. So yeah, and Access has taken me all over the world. I facilitated in different countries and attended classes in different countries and met amazing people like Marilyn Bradford. And yeah, so that's, you know, that's my journey this far with Access.
Well, I know that you're one of the, I don't know if main is the correct term, but you facilitate Talk to the Animals. Please tell us more about that, because I just think that's such a beautiful, critical, amazing part of life is with animals.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the other thing that was following me around were animals. You know, cats would follow me home, dogs would follow me home. I'd always be you know, there
Hi,
was,
are you adopting?
yeah. So, and it's interesting you bring this up, Marilyn, because I remember when I very first looked at the Access Consciousness website, on the main page was a video of Gary doing Conscious Horse, Conscious Rider. And I just went, okay, forget the people, give me the animals. You know, as soon as I watched him doing Conscious Horse, Conscious Rider, I'm like, okay, this is even, how does it get any better than this, you know? So over the period of time, you know, the specialties have developed within Access, of which Right Recovery is one of them. And Conscious Horse, Conscious Rider became a specialty, and Talk to the Animals became a specialty.
Yes.
And so, you know, part of my journey with this has been, I rescue greyhounds that have been on the racetrack in Australia, that have been, you know, abused, broken, traumatized, whatever, and rehabilitate them with the tools of Talk to the Animals, and then rehome them. So Talk to the Animals was, you know, originally a book that, well, it was classes that Gary facilitated, and then he did the book, and then it became a specialty with Susie Godsey and myself as the main facilitators. So it's very much about, yes, developing a relationship with the animal kingdom at large, not just your cats and dogs, but insects, birds, snakes, you know, horses, sharks, all of the animal kingdom. But it's very much about being in communion. It's another doorway to step into perceiving, knowing, being, and receiving, because a lot of the times when we're around our animals, we're not thinking, we're just being.
Just being.
Yeah. And I find that animals are often a door that people will step through. You know, they might not see somebody like you or me for a session or attend a class even, but if they're animals suffering, or they would like to know more about animals, that often opens the door for their curiosity to talk to the animals, communicate with the animals, begin the conversation, and then create greater possibilities within the animal kingdom and their own animals.
Yeah. I remember sometime this year, Susie did a class and I was on it, and I'm like, what about sugar ants? So in America, I don't know, they probably have some variation in Australia. It's like you come into the kitchen and all of a sudden there's this mass of ants eating on this little crumb that you forgot to wipe up. And I know that I can use silica, I think that's what it is. Diatomaceous earth, because it's fine for humans and mammals, but it's not good for anything with an exoskeleton. But I'm like, Susie, what do I do? And she's like, well, why don't you talk to them and have some kind of conversation? And like, seriously, talk to the sugar ants? But it really got me to see that there's a different way to work with all animals. I mean, I tended to be the kitty, dog, you know, horse person, but tell me more about the using the access tools with animals as opposed to the way, call the exterminator. I haven't done that.
Yeah, well, just before we jumped on the podcast, I was saying to you, Marilyn, you know, how I had a very, Australia's second most venomous snake was literally at my door. And just to let people know, do not let this put you off visiting Australia, because I live out in the country, okay? I'm living in their territory. It's not like I'm in suburbia where you rarely see a snake. So just wanted to put that disclaimer in there. Yeah, I mean, it's because where I'm living, there are a lot of snakes. There are a lot of spiders, and spiders are not, I used to be terrified of spiders, and now I'm the one catching the big huntsmen, as we call them, on the wall. And
That big?
yeah, I'm not kidding. They would be this big. They're
Okay.
the size of my hand. They're
Wow.
big. And yeah, I'm 5 foot, but my hand's still a decent size. But, you know, it's okay, guys, this is the story. You've got thousands and thousands of acres out there. See all that long wavy grass and all the plants? That's your territory. This little short stubbly grass and these smooth tiles, this is my territory. You do not come on the short grass, or especially do not come on the short tiles. And so the snake that I had out the front was a baby, and it wasn't very well. And when I went out, it was interesting, because when I opened the door, I mean, I've got a dog that runs in and out all the time, you know, and I opened the door and this snake looked at me, and it was such, the energetic interaction I had with this snake was not, oh my God, that's a, Eastern brown snake. It was, wow, you are beautiful. And the innocence that this snake looked at me, and it was gifting me something. It was contributing something to my world. There aren't words for it,
Right,
but I
right.
just went, okay, buddy, look, you can't stay here. I've got people coming around. You're either going to have to go away or you're going to lose your life. It's your story. So I said, you can probably go out to the bushes, and if you are ready to die, then, the birds, the kookaburra or something will come along and pick you up. I don't know what happened to that snake. I literally came in the house to get my camera to take a photograph of it, went out, and he literally vanished. Could not see him anywhere.
Yeah.
So you're right, Marilyn, you can talk to all sorts of things. It's not just your cat and dog. It's if you've got cockroaches in the house, if you've got mosquitoes, I've managed to stop mosquitoes biting me. I could make a lot of money out of that.
Yes, you could.
Again, it's like, when we create that energy, that's ironically what creates more of those kinds of animals annoying you.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I highly recommend reading Talk to the Animals, having a class with Viv, because it is the whole thing is such a left turn from the way this reality deals with all animals, as you said, including big spiders and snakes and all those kinds of things. So thank you for that. I mean, it's been a great reminder for me, with the sugar in.
Can I add just one other thing to that too? Because I'm gonna do an admission here, because as what was a therapist and now a facilitator, I very much had this rescue, want to fix, want to change, want to give people the solution, want to solve. And that was the crossroads in my life when I chose the tools of access consciousness and to become a facilitator. And what I realized with Talk to the Animals is most people come in because we absolutely love animals. Not everybody comes to class because they love animals. Some of them have terrible, they're fearful of them, or they've been bitten or had a bad experience that they want to move through as well. But there is also this, oh, you poor animal, you poor thing, it's like, no, the animal has choice as well. And so that's a left turn for people. I don't want to give too much away with the classes, but so much transforms in people's lives during the animals class. And it's an organic process because your energy is on this external subject. Sometimes we go to farms or zoos, or we go to an RSPCA or something like that. The transformation occurs, and yet there's this beautiful simultaneity of gifting and receiving that the animals actually facilitate the healing as well. And again, it's all non-verbal. It's not a big song and dance. It's so subtle that a lot of the times we don't even acknowledge it, we don't even see it. So so it got me out of the rescuer mode. And I even cringe when I say I rescue greyhounds. I don't rescue them at all. They find me. They experience the tools of access consciousness, and then they get to go to a new home. And we use the tools to bring in their new owners and connect them energetically with a congruent family. So I guess the results with watching these animals come in very broken and have a few weeks or a month or whatever it is, and then go out the other end, it's highly, highly satisfying.
What a great experience. I mean, wow. I get that you're not, I'm going to make you better. You're like, hi guys, here's a possibility. What do you think? What's going on for you? What would you like to choose? Which is a huge left turn for people, that the animals have choice, that we have choice, that everything has choice.
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, we're out of time, because this is an awesome conversation, but I'd like to thank you so much, Viv, for coming on today and for sharing all of the creations and the left turns and the choices that you've made. It's very inspiring.
You're very welcome, Marilyn. Thank you too, for the inspiration you are to the world. How did we get so lucky?
How did we all get so lucky? Thank you so much for joining this episode of Left Turn. I wonder what embracing left turns could create in your life. What magical possibilities might show up. Remember, when you choose left turns, you are joining a group of the most creative, and brilliant people the world has ever known.